От хиляди години съм се мъчил един ден да се срещна с Луната и все не съм успявал. Защото тя изгрява в мига, когато аз залязвам. За сега всичко е добре. С живите съм жив, с мъртъвците мъртъв. Ами, като настъпи второто пришествие, когато мъртвите възкръснат.
Stefan Albertov Gechev was born on January 29th, 1911 in Ruse. He comes from a family of progressive intellectuals. His parents are the literary critic and historian Albert Gechev and the French teacher Rada Gecheva. From his mother's side of the family, his uncles are Arsen Zlatarov and Nikolai Rainov, who is also his godfather. The names of his relatives are associated with the rich history of the Bulgarian intelligentsia in the 19th and 20th centuries. After the death of his father, Stefan, his sister and mother left Ruse and settled in Plovdiv, where shortly thereafter Nikolai Rainov's family settled as well. Nikolai Rainov became a support for little Stefan. He was his mentor in literature, as well as spiritual matters. In 1927, at the early age of 15, Gechev began writing poetry, and two of the poems were published in Rodna Reč magazine.
Защо така мъчително изкачваш тези високи и безкрайни стълби? Нема забравя, че умееш да летиш.
Fifteen-year-old Stefan lived for about 2 years in Paris, where his mother was sent for a specialization. Gechev studied at the Lyuben High School in Paris, where Robespierre and Victor Hugo have also studied. Nikolai Rainov introduced him to some of the leading figures of the then modern trends in art, such as Tristan Tzara, Aragon, André Breton, and Jean Cocteau. At the time in Paris were also Dora Gabe, Arsen Zlatarov, Nikolai and Bogomil Rainovi, the great Papazov, as well as many others. Later, Gechev shall describe in detail these encounters in his memories, The Unnecessary Skeptics, and will translate the work of some French intellectuals in Bulgarian. Gechev studied Slavic theology at Sofia University until 1934. His professors were the famous scholars Stoyan Romansky, Mihail Arnaudov, and Alexander Teodorov Balan. In 1935, Gechev settled in Athens to study for a master's degree in ancient Greek and modern Greek at the University of Athens, following the advice of his professor Yordan Ivanov. During this period, together with Cleon Paraskos, he translated poems by Elisaveta Bagrian and Atanas Dalchev in Greek, published in the magazine Nea Estia. In 1938, he published his doctoral dissertation entitled The Physiologist, in which he studied an old Bulgarian text translated into Greek. The bibliography took him to the monasteries of Mount Athos, on the Athos Peninsula in Greece. After his doctorate in the period from 1936 to 1942, Stefan Gechev worked in the Bulgarian legation in Athens as a clerk in foreign languages and later as a dragoman translator. During the Second World War in Athens, Gechev managed to support many of his Greek friends with what he had and saved the life of the great writer Kostas Varnalis by guaranteeing for him before the German generals. He described his memories from that time in the book, My Greek Friends. Stefan Gechev was sent to the Bulgarian legation in Bratislava to the position of cultural attaché for the press. After September the 9th, 1944 until May 1945, at the insistence of the Slovak authorities, he was forced to leave Bratislava and was deported to the town of Piestany. Gechev drew inspiration from the difficult situation of the war and wrote two of his most significant novels, The Bridge and Know Yourself. After the war, he returned to Bratislava and was appointed representative of the Bulgarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Warsaw. During this period, he met Paul Eluard and Pablo Picasso, and many other famous European intellectuals. One can read about these encounters in the novel The Unnecessary Skeptics. In 1949, Stefan Gechev was fired from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because he was not a member of the party. His colleagues questioned him persistently, and he was forced to answer them. I cannot become a member of the party because I believe in God. In his own words, this period of his life is described like this.
Родил съм се в изгнание, но те не знаеха. Когато аз разбрах, направих грях и те ме пратиха в изгнание в родината. Едва тогава разбрах какво е истинско изгнание.
For 6 years, Stefan Gechev worked in the Stalin satirical newspaper in a place that was problem-free. He reads foreign magazines and newspapers and gives ideas for cartoons and feuilleton. In 1956, he was expelled from the newspaper because on the occasion of the events in Hungary, he dared to say, quote, "It is not bad for this Stalinist socialism to develop into something else," unquote. In 1957, together with Stefan Gechev and Vasily Khanchev, he founded the Satirical Theatre in Sofia, where he was a playwright until 1958. He headed to the Department of Journalism in the Flame magazine from 1950 to 1966. In 1959, Kristina Mincheva and Stefan Gechev entered into a civil marriage, which lasted until God did them apart. Translator, editor, and bibliographer, Kristina, or as he affectionately called her Titi, was the angel who went through every good and bad moment with him for the next 50 years of his life. After a 25-year break, in the early 50s, Stefan Gechev started writing poems again that his very close friends Petr Dinekov and Blaga Dimitrova liked. Blaga Dimitrova helped him to publish the collection of poems called Notebook. In 1967, the collection of poems was included in the meeting Some Phenomena on the Ideological Front of the Politburo of the Bulgarian Communist Party. The Secretary for Ideological Affairs, Venelin Kotsev, characterized Notebook as a, quote, a deviation from Marxist-Leninist ideology and from communist internationalism, unquote. This was fatal for Stefan Gechev's career in the sphere of literature. The subsequent ban on his works of literature lasted for 23 years. The author's formal separation with the sphere of literature was difficult, but he did not give up. He found a way to publish by writing crime novels under the disguised pseudonym Ventislav Diavatov. The published crime novels are liked by the readers and translated from Bulgarian into Czech, Polish, and Russian. Stefan Gechev is a compiler and author of prefaces to anthologies and books by foreign authors published in Bulgaria. As a translator, Gechev left a serious mark with the translations of the works Alice in the Mirror World by Lewis Carroll, Ithaca by Konstantinos Cavafy, The Joy of Living by Emil Zola, and many others, as well as his translations from other languages such as Czech, Slovenian, Russian, and German. After the political transition in 1989 in Bulgaria, Stefan Gechev very quickly found himself in the center of intellectual life in Bulgaria. His theatrical productions came to life on the stages of the National Theatre Ivan Vazov, the National Palace of Culture, and the Theatre 199. In 1995, the ambassador of Greece in Sofia, Anastasios Sideris, on behalf of President Konstantinos Stefanopoulos, awarded the writer and translator Stefan Gechev with a diploma and the Golden Cross of the Legion of Honor. In 1998, by decree of the President of France and on behalf of the French Ministry of Culture, the ambassador of France in Sofia, Mr. Tremo, awards Stefan Gechev with the highest degree of Knight of the highest French state award, Order of Art and Culture, for his overall contribution to the convergence of cultural relations between Bulgaria and France. On 4th of January 2000, the end of a journey that lasted almost a century came. Stefan Gechev whispers for the last time to his beloved wife and dies one day after their 41st wedding anniversary. A few days later, Titi found a piece of paper that had fallen next to his bed, on which, shortly before he passed on, Gechev had written his last poem. It is already down over the chessboard. In the hearts of words of the pounds is maturing the old hope that perhaps today, with reasonable or unreasonable moves, under the gaze of their kings, they will finally get to the last square. It is already down.